Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ipshita Bansal from BPS Women's University, Sonipat, Haryana. Today we will be discussing about the module Employee Relations Scenario in India of the paper Strategic Human Resource Management. After studying this module, students will be able to understand background of employee relations in India, role and importance of trade unions, types of disputes and dispute resolving mechanisms, and legislative framework for peaceful employee relations. So, let's now understand the background of the subject. The history of employee relations in India can be traced back to the early 18th century when workers of the textile industry, in order to revolt against the oppressions of the British, sought the support of the leaders of the freedom movement. The motive of the British government was to destroy the textile industry in India and promote the textile industry in Britain. Barring the Employers and Workmen Dispute Act of 1860 for settlement of wage disputes, there was hardly any other law to protect the interests of the workers. In Mumbai, under the leadership of Sorabji Shapurji in 1875, a movement was started by reformers against the miserable conditions of factory workers. The movement gained momentum with the formation of Bombay Mill Hands Association under the able leadership of N.M. Lokhande, a factory worker himself who is credited to have laid the foundation of organized labor movement in India. The trade union movement and industrial relation movement was started by reformers against the miserable conditions of factory workers. N.M. Lokhande emerged as the first labor leader in India. A series of protests and strikes by workers after the end of World War I and retaliatory action by employers in the form of lockouts led to the formation of All India Trade Union Congress. In 1920, a large number of strikes occurred between 1919 to 1922 under the influence of the Russian Revolution and establishment of International Labour Organization ILO, giving a fillip to the trade union movement. The introduction of the Trade Union Act in 1926 allowed any 7 members to register a union, provided immunity from civil suits and criminal prosecutions, and also allowed external leadership. National leaders like Mahatma Gandhi joined the trade union movement and changed the scenario of employee relations in India. Industrial workers used methods like satyagraha and also participated in the freedom movement. The Industrial Disputes Act of 1947 was the first comprehensive legislation which contained provisions such as machinery for permanent settlement of disputes. During the same period, changes in the political scenario resulted in the split of ATAC into Indian National Trade Union Congress (INTUC), followed by formation of Hindustan Mazdoor Sangh HMS in 1948. This in a way marked the beginning of the growing nexus between the political parties and the union movement. Many trade union leaders got reflected and became ministers subsequently. With an objective to check the increasing influence of the communist unions, in July 1954, Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh was formed by Jansangh Party, now known as Bharatiya Janata Party. Political involvement and support of elected governments led to heavy unionization in both manufacturing and services sector in public as well as private companies, and subsequent rise in the trade union activities during 1960s and 1970s. There was another split in AITUC in 1970, resulting in the formation of Center of Indian Trade Union by the Marxist communists. The Industrial Dispute Act was amended in 1976 due to pressure from trade unions, making it mandatory for firms employing more than 300 workmen to take prior government permission before retrenching workmen. The trade unions again united to protest the promulgation of the Essential Services Maintenance Ordinance in 1981. The types of trade unions. Trade unions can be of two types: in-house and national. In-house unions are those where companies of workers, either white or blue collar, from within the organization. They are independent unions centered around a particular plant or organization and are not affiliated with any national trade union or federation. The examples of in-house unions are Maruti Udyog Kamgar Union. The national unions are, they may comprise of trade unions in a given industry or a combination of various unions with a common ideology. Some national level trade unions in India are as follows: INTUC, BMS, ITU, HMS, etc. Industrial disputes. Industrial disputes, according to the Industrial Disputes Act 1947, means any dispute or differences between employers or employees, or between employers and workmen, or between workmen and workmen, which is connected with the employment or non-employment or terms of employment or with the conditions of labor of any person. Causes of disputes. In practice, disputes arise out of day-to-day functioning of organizations and may be related to incidents within the organization such as payment of wages or other benefits, dismissals, promotions and transfers, disciplinary issues, overtime, union rivalry, contract workers, technology, etc. It could sometimes be due to extraneous reasons such as multiplicity of labor laws, economic slowdown, political interference, etc. Let's now see some of the dispute resolution mechanisms. Disputes, if not resolved, may lead to serious manifestations which may result in loss of production due to work stoppages, strikes, lockouts. These manifestations may be informal and informal, may be informal or formal ways at individual or organizational level. Some of the important methods of resolving disputes are collective bargaining, code of discipline, grievance procedure, arbitration, conciliation, adjudication and consultative machinery. To continue with dispute resolution mechanisms, we see the relative use of court litigation, expedited, arbitration, mediation and expert determination. Let's understand what is collective bargaining. The most commonly used and effective method of resolving industrial disputes is through collective bargaining. Bargaining takes place between representatives of trade union and representatives of management on issues such as working conditions, wage and benefits, work rules and work-life balance, etc. Code of discipline. Code of discipline is a set of clearly defined duties and responsibilities of employers and workers with the objective of ensuring that employers and employees recognize each other's rights and obligations, promoting constructive cooperation between parties concerned at all levels, securing settlement of disputes and grievances by negotiation, conciliation and voluntary arbitration, eliminating all forms of coercion, intimidation and violence in industrial relations, avoiding work stoppages, facilitating free growth of trade unions, and maintaining discipline in the industry. This diagram shows the grievance procedure. Employee dissatisfaction, if not addressed properly, may lead to serious consequences. It is thus important for every organization to have a proper grievance handling mechanism or procedure. A grievance handling procedure is a well-defined formal communication channel designed in accordance to the current legislation to avert any kind of conflict within the organization. Most labor agreements contain some form of grievance procedure. A grievance is referred to appropriate authority depending on its nature. Ideally, necessary training should be provided to officials to be involved in the process so as to make grievance handling efficient and effective. The grievance procedure should have scope for the aggrieved to appeal against decisions. So, in this flow chart, we see that how the grievance can be redressed. In the tier 1, there is registration of grievance at the level of PEA. Then assessment and action is taken on the registered grievance by the respective nodal officers of the PEA. Then we move forward to whether if the grievance is solved, then we go straight to the last step. If the grievance is not resolved, then grievance is forwarded to the grievance committee at the tier 2 level. If the grievance is resolved, then again the matter ends. But if it is not resolved, the grievance is forwarded to the state coastal zone management authority at tier 3 level. If the grievance is resolved, that is fine, but if it is not resolved, the matter will be forwarded to competent appellate authority. Arbitration refers to a method of resolving industrial disputes wherein a neutral third party studies the information, listens to both the parties and make recommendations that are binding on both the parties. The initiative for arbitration generally comes from the labor union through a notification to the management. The selection of the arbitrator is then done by the company in consultation with the union. A time and place for hearing is then determined and each side then presents its case, supporting their case with documents. The arbitrator, after the hearing and having studied the material, gives the decision generally in a written form within 30 to 60 days. This method of settling disputes has certain distinct advantages, as it is called for by the parties involved, hence the decision is more acceptable to them and are faster as compared to courts and labor tribunals. But some weaknesses of this method are that it may be expensive, and if selection of arbitrator is not proper, the judgment may become arbitrary. Let's now discuss conciliation. Industrial Dispute Act of 1947 specifies the appointment of conciliation officers by the appropriate government for mediating and holding conciliation proceedings for settling industrial disputes. Through this process, representatives of workers and employers appear before a conciliator or board of conciliators for settlement of dispute. The conciliation officer holds proceedings, investigates the dispute and sends a report and memorandum of settlement to the appropriate government within 14 days from the date of commencement of the conciliation proceedings. While the proceedings are in progress, the Industrial Dispute Act prohibits a strike or a lockout. Now let us understand adjudication. Under the Industrial Dispute Act of 1947, adjudication means a mandatory settlement of industrial disputes by labor courts or labor tribunals. A dispute is generally referred by the government for adjudication on the failure of conciliation proceedings. Composition and powers of labor courts and tribunals are also specified in the Act. Once a dispute is referred for adjudication, the verdict of the labor court or labor tribunal is binding on both the parties. Adjudication is regarded as the most significant method for resolving disputes, but is also criticized for the delay in resolving disputes. Let's now talk about consultative machinery. In order to resolve disputes amicably, the government recommends setting up of consultative machinery in plants, industry, state and national levels. As per the Industrial Disputes Act 1947, bipartite work committees and joint management councils are constituted at the plant level. There are wage boards and industrial committees at the industry levels. Labor laws is the set of techniques and practices for intervention into particular kinds of markets, specifically markets that will reach suboptimum results without such interventions, because individuated actors cannot overcome collective action problems. While the techniques and practices vary with legal systems, they normally include devices for permitting collective actors to negotiate and agree. Special institutions to encourage informal and formal bargaining and resolving disputes, and legally set minimum terms. Under the Constitution of India, labor is a subject in the concurrent list, where both the central and the state governments can enact legislations. Several labor laws have been enacted to prevent exploitation of laborers, ensure welfare of workers, and ensure safety and security of workers by providing safe working conditions or environment. Let's now understand the origin of labor laws. Labor laws emerged when employers tried to restrict the power of workers' organizations and keep labor costs low. The workers began demanding better conditions and the right to organize so as to improve their standard of living. The employer's cost increased due to workers' demand to win higher wages or better working conditions. This led to a chaotic situation which required the intervention of the government. In order to put an end to disputes between the ever-warring employer and the employee, the government enacted many labor laws. Given the growth of the PPO industry in India, do you think some new kinds of laws might be required to get enacted for labor in this sector? Perhaps the answer is yes. Let's now see the checklist of labor laws of India. There are laws related to industrial relations. These are Trade Union Act 1926 and the Trade Unions Amendment Act 2001. Second is Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946 and Industrial Employment Standing Orders Rules 1946. The third is Industrial Disputes Act. Secondly, there are laws related to wages. These are Payment of Wages Act 1936, Payment of Wages Rules 1937, Payment of Wages Amendment Act 2005, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Minimum Wages Central Rules Act 1950, the Working Journalist Fixation of Rates of Wages Act 1958, Working Journalist Conditions of Service as Miscellaneous Provisions Rules 1957, and the Payment of Bonus Act 1965 and the Payment of Bonus Rules 1975. And thirdly, we have laws related to working hours, conditions of services and employment. The Factories Act 1948, the Dock Workers Regulation of Employment Act 1948, the Plantation Labour Act 1951, the Mines Act 1952, the Working Journalist and Other Newspaper Employees Act 1955, the Working Journalists and Other Newspaper Employees Rules 1957, the Merchant Shipping Act 1958, and so on and so forth. Then we have the acts which are related to equality and empowerment of women. These are the Maternity Benefit Act 1961 and Equal Remuneration Act 1976. Then we have laws related to deprived and disadvantaged sections of the society. These are the Bonded Labour System Abolition Act 1976, the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, the Children Pledging of Labour Act 1933. Then we have laws related to Social Security, some of which are the Workmen's Compensation Act 1923, the Employees State Insurance Act, the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, the Payment of Gratuity Act 1972, and Unorganized Workers Social Security Rules 2008. Then we have laws related to labor welfare. Some of them are the Mica Mining Labor Welfare Fund Act 1946, the Limestone and Dolomite Mines Labor Welfare Fund Act 1972, the Beedi Workers Welfare Fund Act 1976, the Iron Ore Mines, Manganese and Ore Mines and Chrome Ore Mines Labor Welfare Fund Act 1976, the Cine Workers Welfare Fund Act 1981, etc. Then we have laws related to employment and training. The Employment Exchanges Compulsory Notification of Vacancies Act 1959, the Apprentice Act 1961, and then there are also some other acts which relates to the accidents, war injuries, weekly holidays, national and festival holidays, personal injuries, etc. Let us now summarize what we have studied in this module. The focus of this module was addressing the needs of employees freehand for resolving industrial disputes, establishing good industrial employee relations, higher production with minimum cost and higher profits. All these practices of solving industrial disputes saves time, increase efficiency of workers. Any initiative taken in favor of welfare of workers result in boosting morale of workers and thus ultimately boosts up the productivity of the organization. Thank you.